I wanted to close out this show by counting down my personal top 10 games of 2024. This year was a surprisingly good year for games. I think that a lot of people looked at this as kind of a slower year. I would very much disagree with that. I think that this year had, it was missing some of the tentpole releases that other years have delivered. I mean, look, last year we had Baldur's Gate 3, we had Tears of the Kingdom. Year prior to that was Elden Ring. Like it's really hard to compare this year to those years, but if you look at the depth of what 2024 delivered in terms of quality releases, I think that my lower half of my top 10 is stronger than most other years. I mean, you can always say like, okay, well, 2017 and 2018, but yeah, those were historically deep years. Looking at my top 10 of 2024, I would play any of these games at any given moment because I love them so much. So, kick it off. Number 10, Sonic X Shadow Generations. Sonic Generations, one of the best modern Sonic games of all time. And then when you pair that with an all new game that might be the best modern Sonic game ever released in Shadow Generations, having those two in one package, the best version of Sonic Generations and an all new incredible side dish that is Shadow Generations, it's as good as it gets, right? Like it's a fantastic entry in the Sonic franchise, and it's my number 10 game of 2024. Number 9, Persona 3 Reload. This was a game I've been waiting to have come into existence. I think a lot of people were really hopeful that they would one day remake Persona 3 because it's kind of difficult to go back to the original Persona 3 no matter what version you are talking about. And whether you're talking the original Persona 3, whether you're talking about Persona 3 Fez, whether you're talking about Persona 3 Portable, all of those had reasons for why it wouldn't be something you would really want to play in 2024. Persona 3 Reload did everything that I wanted, right? Like it remade Persona 3 in the style of Persona 5 Royal, and it gave you an incredible, accessible, approachable way to play this game. And I'm so happy I was finally able to round out what is considered like the modern trilogy of the Persona franchise in terms of like the games that I've played all the way through to completion. So Persona 3 Reload, my number 9 game of the year. Number 8, Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket. This was one that I did not think I was going to get pulled into. Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket is I was excited for the collection aspect. I did not think I was going to get sucked into the battling element, but I certainly did, and I had a blast with all the battles I had. It's not the most well balanced game on the marketplace today, but it has given me plenty of extremely tense battles, extremely satisfying battles, also some extremely frustrating battles. But yeah, Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket is a game that I can fire up and enjoy no matter what I'm doing. If I have like 10 minutes, I can open some packs. I love the feeling of opening booster packs. So this is something that I get to do that in digital form. And it automatically sorts all the cards that I pull. So I don't have to worry about that, which is my least favorite part of collecting real Pokemon cards. And it's exciting to see them expanding the collection that you can pull from in such an aggressive way. We're about a month and a half deep and they gave another expansion already. So it's great to see the developers supporting it. And I'm excited for trading. I'm excited for the next expansions coming in 2025. But for now, it is my number 8 game of the year. Number 7, Call of Duty Black Ops 6. I have not enjoyed a Call of Duty game to this extent since before, 2019. That was the last time I really enjoyed a Call of Duty game. And I've heard Black Ops Cold War was great, but I was just so burnt out from the Call of Duty franchise. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 gives you an unbelievable campaign. I've had such a blast with the campaign. The competitive multiplayer gives you zombies. I'm assuming that there's some Warzone stuff that I'm never going to see because I'm not really a Battle Royale guy. But yeah, Black Ops 6, it's the best entry in the Call of Duty franchise in at least 5 years, if not longer. Number 6, MiniShoot Adventures. I have sung the praises of this game so many times. I'm sure the listeners of this show are sick of hearing me talk about it. Basically, the elevator pitch is it is a top-down Zelda-style game, but instead of controlling like an on-foot adventurer, you're controlling a ship and smooth traversal. in a bullet hell exploration based adventure, kind of Metroidvania style. And the boss battles are so much fun. The exploration is rewarding. The sense of progression is fantastic. It's maybe my dark horse most underrated game of the year, but it comes in at number 6 for me overall. Number 5, this was one that, again, we talked about earlier in the show, but a game that I was not anticipating making it onto my top 10 list, probably because I had so many apprehensions. But Marvel Rivals, just an incredible licensed shooter, hero shooter of all things, which I thought I was over after kind of the fall of Overwatch 2, the failure of Concord. I thought that the hero shooter genre was just doomed to not acquire the audience that it once did. But Marvel Rivals really gives off those Overwatch 1 vibes and brings so many of my favorite heroes and villains from fiction. Me being a huge Marvel fan, it's so great to see a game like Marvel Rivals come into the space, make waves, get kind of the critical acclaim, the community, everybody on board with this game. I've had so much fun with the amount of time that I've put into Marvel Rivals, and I'm so excited to continue to see it evolve and add more characters and new maps and new modes potentially. Like I can't wait to see what 2025 holds for Marvel Rivals. Number 4 for me is Metaphor Refantasio. I'm such a big Persona fan, and seeing that team, the team behind Persona 3, 4, 5, seeing them take a leap into a fantasy RPG, delivering the experience that Metaphor Refantasio delivers. It's so rewarding and so satisfying to have so many of those mechanics transpose so masterfully into the fantasy realm. And not only that, but also borrow elements like the traversal mechanics that take time off of your calendar when you're going places, and the road trip element that you see in so many RPGs, especially some of like the greatest RPGs of all time have that road trip element. And the job system is so masterfully executed. And when I traveled to Tokyo to meet with the Metaphor Refantasio team back in July, Katsuro Hashino, the director, he said that he wanted to make it so that these jobs and classes, there were no builds that were overpowered, and everything was, you could approach this however you wanted. There was no like best build in the meta, and I think he accomplished that. Like, you can approach this, you can build out your characters however you want, you can spec them however you want, you can have your team composition be however you want and still be effective. And I'm sure if I dug enough, there would be people that have found the best ways to approach this game, but it is a masterfully crafted RPG, and I have had a blast every hour that I've put into Metaphor Refantasio, and that's why it's my number 4 game of the year. Number 3, we're getting into the real heavy hitters of this year. Astrobot. I've talked at length about how it's so uncommon to have another developer match, if not exceed, the stuff that Nintendo has done in the platforming space. And here we are, Sony and Team Asobi, really just doing everything they could possibly do to show Nintendo that they're not the only ones who know how to make an incredibly crafted 3D platformer. It won Game of the Year at the Game Awards. It is my number 3 game of the year, but I would not, complain or argue with anybody who says this is their favorite game of 2024. I wouldn't say that about Metaphor. I wouldn't say that about really any of these games in the top 10 of my list here. Um, Going down to number 2, a game that I talk at length about all the time, it is Balatro, one of the greatest indie games I've ever played. It's a game I still play to this day. It's probably my most played game of 2024 if you count the Switch and my mobile hours that I've logged. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be up there in terms of my most played games of this year. And it's just one of the most perfect creations in terms of the game mechanics, the way it takes the age old mechanics of poker and expands on them in such a video gamey way. I never thought that poker could be adapted into something like this, and being able to level up your cards and the sense of progression as you make it through each individual run is pretty much unrivaled. It makes me want to go back and play other deck builders like Slay the Spire. And really, this feels like something that I am just extremely eager to see where Local Thunk, the developer, where he goes from here. And I'm extremely eager to see how the genre progresses from here. And that brings me to my number one game of 2024. By now, you probably have guessed it. It is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I posted when this game came out and I played it all the way through and got to the end. I said it's going to take something extremely special to top Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in my game of the year category, or my game of the year slot. And that was back in like February or March when I put a bow on this game. And that has really rung true for me. Uh, Astrobot for a while seemed like it might be able to top Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Balatro, I started thinking like, oh, I've played this so much. I've loved it so much. Does it top Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Metaphor kind of challenged it in my mind for a moment there. But ultimately, I had to go with my heart, which was that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was the most memorable experience that I had this year. You know, I loved Final Fantasy VII Remake when it came out a few years ago, and Rebirth really took everything to the next level. It delivers a completely different experience. Remake was so kind of on rails and linear, and yes, there were some exploration elements in there, but opening it up in the way that Rebirth does and continuing the story in the ways that it does and delivering on all those iconic moments. The performances are all masterful. The combat feels great. It's the exact kind of open world that I enjoy. Yes, there were some problems with the flow of the story and the momentum that it's easy to get lost in the exploration and kind of lose track of the story, but ultimately it was a game that delivered emotional moments. It delivered things like things that I'm going to remember for as long as I'm a gamer. And it has me so excited to see how this incredible team that is made up of both legends and relative newcomers over at Square Enix, the Final Fantasy VII Remake, Rebirth, and whatever the third entry is going to be called, however they put a bow on this trilogy is really going to be something special and really something that I'm going to be frothing at the mouth to play. So that wraps up my top 10 list of the best games I played in 2024. And let me know your individual picks in the comments of this post. I would love to hear what your top 10 games were of 2024, because I think that, again, it wasn't the greatest year in gaming history, but it was kind of a sleeper year for the depth that we received. And there were several games that I didn't even get to because there were so many great games to play. I mentioned like UFO 50, 1000X Resist, so many Dragon Age the Veilguard. I didn't really get a chance to put a significant amount of time into that, but yeah, let me know what your top 10 games are of 2024. I'm looking forward to hearing what they were.